I'll call the meeting to order and ask for the roll call, please.
Councilmember Abdelgawad.
Here.
Councilmember Baker.
Present.
Councilmember Barber.
Present.
Councilmember Burke.
Present.
Councilmember Ingert.
Present.
Councilmember Forster.
Present.
Councilmember Holman.
Present.
Councilmember Townsend.
Present.
Mayor Turnbow.
Present. We have a quorum. Would you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, good evening, everyone. And again, we have a couple of proclamations this evening. Our first one being for Arbor Day. And I'll ask our arborist, Mr. Rulo, to please join me up here. This proclamation reads, whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska and is now observed throughout the nation and the world. Whereas trees can reduce the erosion, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products, and increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. Now, therefore, I, Christopher P. Turnbow, Mayor of the City of Raymore, do hereby proclaim June 12, 2023 as Arbor Day in the City of Raymore, and do encourage all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day by planting a tree in support of efforts to protect our trees and woodlands for future generations. Here, Steve, I'll give that to you. Our official arborist for the city. And this is a first for us, this proclamation, and this is a recognition of Flag Day. And I'd like the gentlemen in our audience to please join me up here. At their request, we did prepare this proclamation, and this reads, whereas June 14, 2023 is the 107th anniversary of National Flag Day, as determined by the Second Continental Congress and the Flag Act of June 14, 1777, making the 13 red and white striped flag with 13 stars on a field of blue representing our first states. And whereas our patriot ancestors, risking their lives and fortunes to form a new perfect nation based on the Jeffersonian ideal of equality led by democratically ruled government and a free and open system of education to train citizen leaders. And whereas the Flag Act of 1794 was signed into law by President George Washington on January 13, 1794, it changed the design of the flag to accommodate the admission into the Union of the states of Vermont and Kentucky, providing for 15 stripes as well as 15 stars. And whereas the Flag Act of 1818 was enacted by Congress for the modern rule of having 13 stripes to represent the original 13 colonies, and having the number of stars match the number of states. It also provided subsequent changes in the number of stars be made on July 4th, Independence Day, the year following admission. And whereas the great conflict of the Civil War found Union officers determined to maintain the union of our great nation, joined together for the preservation of peace, rallied their troops under the flag of the United States of America. And whereas President Wilson in 1916 and President Coolidge in 1927 called for the nationwide observance of National Flag Day, and in 1949, President Harry S. Truman signed into law the congressional decree making June 14th of each year National Flag Day, a time when Americans reflect on the foundation of our nation's freedom. And whereas Americans also remember their loyalty to the nation, reaffirm their beliefs in liberty and justice and all that they gave, so that we might freely meet here today. Now therefore I, Christopher P. Turnbull, Mayor of the City of Raymore, Missouri, do hereby proclaim June 14th as Flag Day in the City of Raymore, Missouri. And I have witnessed and hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of Missouri to be affixed this 12th day of June 2023. I'll present that to the gentleman representing our Continental Congress here. Why don't you turn around there and we'll hold the flag up. Get a picture. Thank you for being here. Thank you, gentlemen. That concludes our presentations for this evening. We'll now move on to personal appearances. Tonight we have with us Lauren Shanks, who lives in Choteau Place, to speak to us about taxation disadvantages of private streets.
Good evening. This is way more formal than I was expecting. I just wanted to have a conversation with everyone about our street, Chateau Place. We're in the 4th Ward, right off of Ward Road, and I just have a few sentences I'd like to read. So the crux of the matter is that our small HOA street pays full tax rates, yet we don't receive full benefits in return. We don't qualify for city amenities like snow removal. We don't get police patrol. Our streets are not lit. We don't get city sidewalks or road repairs or any other like infrastructure related amenities. So because the original builder of our HOA chose to make it a private street, it's private, so therefore we don't get these. And we've looked into what it would take to become a public street, and we just don't meet the dimensions. Our street is too narrow. It's just not conducive to becoming a public street. So we're kind of stuck with the original decision from the builder, 20 years ago to be private. And so I guess I'm kind of coming hat in hand asking, what can I do? So is there a way to limit our tax exposure based off the amount of city amenities we receive in exchange? So I don't have a statement, I just have a question, I guess. So I don't know if the format is we have a dialogue or if I sit down now.
No, not really, but
okay.
I will turn to Mr. Fearborn and ask him if we could potentially schedule this as a topic for a work session.
Okay.
And then that way we can kind of get into the details a little more. Mr. Fearborn, I'm sorry I covered you. What'd you say?
We absolutely can, sir.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. We'll be in touch. Staff reports. Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Ms. Hill to make a staff report from the city clerk's office.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mayor and Council. We have received 6 applications for the sale of fireworks in the city. These applications meet the requirements as outlined in City Code Section 215 that governs the sale and discharge of fireworks. Issuance of the permits will be granted upon successful inspections by Development Services and the Fire Department before the beginning of sales. The applicant names and locations of each site are included in the council packets. The sale of fireworks is permitted from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. from June 28th through July 4th. The discharge of fireworks is permitted from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. on July 1st and 3rd, 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. on Sunday, July 2nd, and 10 a.m. to midnight on July 4th. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Anyone? Okay, thank you. Mr. Fearborn?
Thank you, Ms. Hill. I would ask Mr. Gress to make a report for Development Services.
Thank you, sir. Mayor and Council, included in your packet was a written report for the month of May for the Development Services Department. Just a couple things to highlight. For the fiscal year of 2023, we're currently up to 20 detached single-family home permits. 9 of those were issued in the month of May, so it was a busy month for building inspections and permitting. In addition, on the second page of your report, you'll see code enforcement activity. I can always tell that summer is here based on the number of tall grass complaints and citations that are issued from our department. You can see that 59 of those out of the 60 for the year were issued last month, in addition to a pretty fair amount of inoperable vehicles that Mr. Vogel was resolving through the past month. In terms of development and construction activity, I think I mentioned this at the last meeting, but work continues within the Southern Glazers and Urban Outfitters buildings at the Raymore Commerce Center. At this point, the landlord of that building has finished their infrastructure modifications to the building, and everything now is solely in the tenant's hands to get their project finished. That will conclude my staff report.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any questions? Mr. Townsend?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's probably not a question, just a comical observation. Was those inoperable vehicles found when they cut the grass? Thank you. Just a comment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone else? Okay, Mr. Fearborn?
Thank you, Mr. Grass. I would ask Chief Wilson to make a report for the police department.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. The Police Department, along with the Missouri Safe Kids and the Safety and Health Council of Western Missouri and Kansas, hosted a National Child Passenger Safety Seat Technician course. The course we sponsored, during the course, we sponsored an installation and check of the child safety seat event in our city, where we had the community come in, and those folks that are attending the class got to use their skills and inspect safety seats in the cars to make sure they were put in correctly. We had one officer attend the course. Well, that gives us 5 officers now that are technicians. We'll be hosting 2 additional installation events and checks, one in midsummer, late July, and then one during the fall festival. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions of the chief? Yes, Mr. Barber.
Thank you. It's just a question. When my youngest was born, the fire department would help you put a car seat in. Do they still do that, or is there anybody that helps do that? I found out when I had my youngest child that the interior of your car doesn't matter anymore. Your car interior is shot. So just curious.
I think that we all that have children experience that very thing. I don't know if the fire department still do that. Once upon a time, they did here in Raymore. I don't believe there was any South Metro folks in the class, but there were some from Jackson County as well.
Anyone else? Yes.
I
Ms.
actually can
Forster.
answer that. Around here, the fire department does not, because I reached out to make sure. Got to keep my baby safe.
Okay, there you go. Anyone else? Okay, thanks, Chief. Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Chief. Next Monday, the council does have a work session scheduled, June 19th, 6 p.m. 2 items currently on the agenda. We're going to be bringing for council discussion, some possible code changes associated with our current peddler's license. As we've hit the season, some new information has come to us that is being utilized for the citizens' benefit in some of our surrounding sister cities. Would like to get the council's input and opinion on whether we should be adopting those portions of code as well. Second item that we'll be on, as we had promised, we'll be returning to you all with more information and recommendations on the body-worn camera program. Last item, just wanted to inform the council that this week we formally begin the budget process leading up to final approval the last week of October. It is a very delightful week for the city manager. I am not quite sure that the department heads would share that sentiment. That concludes staff reports.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. Any questions for Mr. Fearborn? Okay. Moving right along, we'll move into the consent agenda. We have 2 items on the consent agenda. I'd entertain a motion to dispose of those items.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Delgawad.
I move that we approve the consent agenda, including item A, City Council meeting minutes for May 22nd, 2023, and item B, acceptance of public improvements at the venue, lots 2, 3, 6, and tract A.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Mr. Mayor,
Thank you. Mr. Townsend.
I second that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Townsend. Motion been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda, both items. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously 8-0. We'll now move on to unfinished business. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3807 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3807 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract proposal with Black & McDonald for the police firing range electrical installation in the amount of $80,795.20, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Abdel-Gawad?
I move that we approve Bill 3807, award of contract for the police firing range electrical work.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3807. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3809 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3809 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract proposal with Red Equipment LLC for the police firing range mower in the amount of $65,532, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Abdel-Gawad?
I move that we approve Bill 3809, award of contract for a new mower.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3809. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3810 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3810 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore amending the FY 2023 budget and authorizing the city manager to make improvements to the police firing range to include fencing, power to meter, electrical to buildings, mower and trailer, to be funded from available fund balance in the general fund.
Thank you. Is there no further questions? I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Abdel-Gawad?
I move that we approve Bill 3810, budget amendment for the police firing range.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3810. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3814 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3814 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and city manager to enter into a contract with In Situ Form Technologies USA LLC for the inflow and infiltration project in the amount of $43,920, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Abdel-Gawad?
I move that we approve Bill 3814, award of contract for inflow and infiltration.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3814. Any further discussion? Yes, Ms. Abdel-Gawad.
Just a quick comment to point out that this is a service the city's providing in Chateau Place, if no one else noticed.
Ah, yeah. Good catch. Thank you. Anything else? If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3812 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3812 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the Madison Valley Second Final Plat, lots 175 through 229, and tracts C through H, a subdivision of land located in the southeast quarter of Section 9, Township 46 North, Range 32 West, Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Abdel-Gawad?
I move that we approve Bill 3812 for the Madison Valley Second Final Plat.
Thank you. And is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3812. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3813 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3813 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the Johnston Drive Street Plat and accepting the right-of-way for approximately .94 acres of land for the extension of Johnston Drive located in the southeast quarter of Section 18, Township 46 North, Range 32 West, Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Abdel-Gawad?
I move that we approve Bill 3813, Johnson Drive right-of-way final plat.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3813. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously 8-0. Okay, please have the second reading of Bill 3811 by title only.
The second reading of Bill 3811 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to execute a quitclaim deed to Brookside Homes Association, Inc. for Tract AA, Brookside 10th Final Plat, replat of Tract Y.
If there are no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Abdel-Gawad?
I move that we approve Bill 3811, transfer of Tract AA in Brookside 10th Plat to the Brookside Homeowners Association.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Motion been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3811. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously 8-0. Thank you. We'll now move on to new business. Could I please have the reading of Resolution 2327?
The reading of Resolution 2327, a resolution of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the Saddlebrook preliminary plat.
Thank you. This item requires a public hearing. I'll open that public hearing at this time and ask for a staff report.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Gress to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. Mayor and council, the item before you this evening is a request from Rick Fry and Doug Park, who represent Brookside Builders. They're requesting a preliminary plat approval for the Saddlebrook subdivision, which is a proposed 172-lot single-family development located on 65 acres of land, which is north of Hubach Hill Road, east of the Stonegate subdivision. This application follows a request that was approved by the City Council on July 26 of 2021. That application expired due to lack of activity or the filing of a final plat application, and therefore it expired. So therefore staff required this development to go back through the process again like they did in 2021. The plan remains substantially unchanged from its previously approved format. The only exception would be the inclusion of that portion of Tract Y that was not dedicated to the HOA this evening to be included within the plat for this development moving forward. The Planning Commission on June 6, 2023 did vote 5-2 to recommend approval of the request, subject to two conditions. The first being that the street names be provided to the city in accordance with the Unified Development Code. The second being a noted exception to Section 445.030I9A, which allowed for the 4 southern cul-de-sacs in the subdivision to exceed 600 foot in length. To provide a little bit of background on that request, as you'll see in your packet, the 4 southern streets of this development are cul-de-sacs. They do exceed the allotted 600-foot requirement. However, the zoning that was originally obtained for this development, which is R1P, single-family plan district, one of the amenities that was provided in order to obtain that zoning designation was the preservation of the existing tree buffer that exists along the east side or the west side of the property that butts up to Stonegate. Through that rezoning process, there was more or less a request from the adjacent subdivision to preserve that, to provide substantial screening. So the layout that was provided removed the requirement to create a loop street, which would have had lots on either side of that road, which would have cut in to that tree buffer and required the removal of those trees. So through our discussions with Public Works, we did provide the exception as required by code, and the commission voted 5-2 to recommend that exception and noted that exception within their motion. Staff does recommend approval of the application, and that concludes my staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Gress. Any questions, Mr. Gress? Ms. Forster?
Thank you. What was the 2 for not?
In terms of who was that or what was their?
Or why was their reasoning for saying that they would not approve it, 5-2?
In one of those cases, when this application came forward in 2021, they also voted against it, and so to be consistent, that they stuck with their original vote in 2021. The second one had to do more directly with the length of the cul-de-sac, whether or not staff should have granted that exception to make them exceed the 600-foot requirement.
Sure, but the first one, I mean, assuming they had a reason the first go around.
I believe it was consistent with the same requirement of the cul-de-sac length,
Thank you.
feeling that those were too long.
Anyone else have any questions for staff? If not, the public hearing is open at this time. If anyone would like to speak to the council on this particular topic, please step forward, state your name and address for the record. Try to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. I see no one coming forward, so I will close the public hearing at this time and entertain a motion to dispose of this item if there are no further questions.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Abdel-Gawad?
I move that we approve Resolution 2327 following the conditions by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second.
Thank you, sir. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the Resolution 2327. Any further discussion? Mr. Holman?
I did watch the tape, video of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. You weren't at that, but as I recall, the original meeting in '21 you were present at, and I got, I guess, a little bit of a different feeling from Commissioner Faulkner, who was much more vehement back in '21 as opposed to this time. In fact, his comments included he knew that this would likely pass council, and I think that he was probably a little more okay with that this time than he was 2 years ago. But he wanted to stay consistent with his vote.
Interesting.
So,
Okay.
that was my take from watching the video on this.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Anyone else have any comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Can I please have the first reading of Bill 3816 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3816 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the Madison Valley Third Final Plat, a subdivision of land located in the southeast quarter of Section 9, Township 46 North, Range 32 West, Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Gress to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. The request this evening before you is from Brian Ron, who represents Blue Spring Safety Storage LLC and Country Club Homes. They are the developer for the Madison Valley subdivision. The request this evening is for the third final plat, which includes 21 lots that make the connection between the recently approved second plat and the currently existing first plat, which is built out to the east side of this development. The Planning and Zoning Commission at their June 6 meeting voted 6-0 to recommend approval of the request. I will note that one commissioner recused themselves from the vote due to living directly adjacent to this property. That will conclude staff report. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of staff? All right. Thank you, sir. If there are no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Delgado?
I move that we approve Bill 3816, Madison Valley Third Final Plat.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3816. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3815 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3815 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, annexing property described as Lot 5 of Willow Hills subdivision, Section 10, Township 46 North, Range 32 West, Cass County, Missouri, and belonging to Ron and Eileen Stevick pursuant to Section 71.014 of the revised statutes of the state of Missouri.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Gress to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. At the beginning of May, the owners of property at 1010 North Jackson, Mr. and Mrs. Stevick, approached the city with the request to voluntarily annex into the city. If the council's familiar at all with that area of the city, this is the last property within that section of the city to not be part of the City of Raymore. It's the last lot within the Willow Hills subdivision to be solely within the county. Staff has prepared an annexation agreement for that property, which outlines the requirements for the connection to city water, and overall requirements of annexing into the city. Staff does recommend approval of this request, and that concludes staff report.
Thank you, David. Is there any questions of staff? Mr. Delgado?
Just a quick question. Do we know what kind of pushed them over the edge?
This property has been, since they're not hooked up to city water, they've been trucking in water to their property throughout the entirety of their life living there. I believe it was the request of their family to move away from doing so to be able to connect directly to the water. I will note, in addition to the requirement to connect to the city main, they will go through the process to get those plans approved with a licensed plumber. What the council will likely see in the coming months would be a staff-initiated rezoning, which would bring this property into compliance with the city's zoning ordinance, whereas right now it's in compliance with the county zoning ordinance.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Anyone else? If there are no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Delgado?
I move that we approve Bill 3815, the voluntary annexation of 1010 North Jackson Street, Lot 5 in Willow Hills.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3815. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3817 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3817 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Olson Studio for the provision of professional services related to the city's comprehensive plan update in the amount of $55,000, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. You guessed it, Mr. Gress.
It's the last one, promise. The item this evening is a request to contract with a consultant to complete the city's comprehensive plan update. In 2021, the city began the efforts of drafting a new comprehensive plan for the city to replace the current growth management plan that we have adopted. Following the 2022 community conversations that were hosted by the city, staff has compiled a draft of the plan, again, with the intent of contracting with a consultant to assist in the final design and compilation of the plan for adoption by the city. The consultant, as outlined in the scope of services within your packet, the consultant will help develop a brand for the proposed plan and incorporate professionally developed drawings, images, and diagrams that will support the findings that staff has included in their draft. They will also provide technical assistance through demographic and economic reporting and insights that will also be incorporated into that final plan. Moving towards the end of this process, the consultant will assist staff through the final adoption process and attend various park board, council, and planning and zoning meetings to get feedback and hopefully relatively soon adopt this plan for the city moving forward. Staff did issue an RFQ to solicit bids in April of 2023. Olson Studio was the sole submittal. Staff feels, based on the unique approach that the city has taken to develop this comprehensive plan, being a more of an internal process than an external process. Through reviewing their scope of services, staff did determine that their submittal was a quality submittal and worth contracting, and does recommend that the council award the contract to Olson Studio. I will note that there are two representatives from Olson in the audience in case the council has any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions of staff or the contractor? Hearing none, if there's no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mrs. Abdel-Gawad.
I move that we approve Bill 3817, award of contract for professional services for the Raymore 2045 Comprehensive Plan.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3817. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3818 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3818 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the FY 2023 budget and updating the schedule of fees for residential trash and recycling services.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Murdoch to make the staff report on this item.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Bill 3818 is essentially the yearly adjustment of fees for trash and recycling based on the consumer price index that occurs each year. This year that was 6.9%, and you'll note in the letter from Constable Sanitation the increase based on the CPI, which I would like to note is actually less than the CPI. The total overall increase this year is 97 cents between trash and recycling, which equates out to just under 5%. We have an excellent relationship with Constable Sanitation in terms of service and responsiveness that they give to the city. Shannon Edgman with Constable and the owner, George Constable, is here tonight, and I know George is also going to speak here just a little bit, essentially the state of the industry. So we're going to give him just a couple of minutes, and then if you have any questions for him on the contract or services that are going on with Constable Sanitation, please bring those up with him. Last thing before he starts to speak, I do want to note in 2 weeks you will see the new contract with Constable in terms of the 3-year extension with 2 possible renewal years even after that. So you'll be getting that on the 26th. So Mr. Constable, if you want to come forward, and then if you have any questions, like I said, feel free to ask. Thanks.
All right, thanks for having me. This is our yearly update on trash. This year has been fairly smooth as far as most of the routes have been adjusted for some of the growth there in Raymore. There are a couple areas that have grown a little faster than anticipated. Oak Ridge Farms has been one of those, and we went from delivering carts once a month to the new residents to trying to get them there a little bit faster, and we're at least on top of it twice a month currently. We also have recycling truck that runs longer that particular day, and we're working in currently to get another truck in there to knock down route times quite a bit. Really, the driver of the CPI this year is the equipment. Trucks have went up significantly, and so have wages to attract and retain decent drivers. And I knew coming in last year that the CPI increase was going to still remain somewhat significant, but I do anticipate it to go down further years, which gives some relief, because I was up here sweating last year knowing that, hey, this, we haven't made it through the storm yet. And before I answer any questions while I'm up here publicly, I just want to make sure that it is known that we do not support the proposed landfill, nor do we have any discussions with the parties involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Constable. Anybody have any questions? Yes, Mr. Holman.
So I have a bit of a unique question for you. So I remember when you first took over the contract for the city, you've been through all kinds of tumultuous times and things since you've been here. You'd really done your homework when you came to us with your proposal. You were you and your entire company and your employees have been incredibly involved in the city, especially early on. You attended the fundraiser for the park. Several of your employees, your blue-collar employees, were there and donated to the cause. For an outside firm that is not existing within the city, you've been as active as anybody I've ever seen. You've also gone through COVID. You've also gone through cost increases to your business, and you've seen the effect of growth that our city has on your business. Now that you've been doing this for a few years, I'd like to know what your thoughts are. Did this go like you thought it would? Are you happy? And what do you see as our future challenges when it comes to waste management within the city?
Really, with where I started, I'm very happy. We're in the 4th year of the contract. Whenever I put a contract in front of a city, it's very important to me that I deliver for that entire length of time. It's a word, I don't know how necessarily to explain it, but it's like I'm giving the city my word. I'm going to be here for 5 years. I'm at least going to accomplish that. So whenever we originally did the contract, that was my goal. I am a lot more comfortable doing it, now that we're approaching year 4 than I was year 1. As far as future anticipation, really the equipment that changes emissions in 2026 is a large concern in the trucking world. There's been certain types of garbage trucks that have went up 55%, and Raymore is a community that I feel like deserves and likes to see, clean, nice equipment out on the street. So that's probably would be my number one concern. Disposal wise, we've been very involved with a transfer station nearby, almost where we meet bi-weekly, and they know that our success in keeping that tonnage going there helps them succeed. So it's almost like we're working on a partnership. So that's a good thing to have. Employees, from where we first started, it was a little bit easier to attract and retain, but nothing's changed at the top of Raymore. And, we don't foresee any of the, supervisor staff changing as we move forward.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Oh, Mr. Barber.
Thanks, Your Honor, and thank you, Mr. Constable. Like Mr. Holman said, you came in when it was pretty rough when you started with the city. Had been let down by a provider, and certainly have turned it around. And I don't hear anything about trash anymore, other than the landfill. This council knows more about solid waste than we ever care to know. We're hoping that you would take care of it, but now we've had to learn about how it's delivered and all of that. It's interesting you said your cost of labor and equipment and all that, but has the transfer station helped with keeping that part of your business cost under control? Just curious about that.
Yeah, and with the transfer station, any raises that they have are reflective on the CPI as well. So if something does fluctuate, it's not going to fluctuate above the CPI.
Can I ask a question? I'd like to ask about recycling.
Okay.
So I know that knowing the mayors of several communities in our area, they've kind of given up on recycling, and so their trash is trash. We continue to recycle, and it seems like it's a successful effort on our part to recycle items. Are you in the industry? Is there any struggle going on with recycling that you're aware of?
As far as any struggles industry-wise, it's always plastic related, and it's how they break it down and what exactly is the process and how to keep costs lower on plastics. As far as, you know, some of the changes after COVID, paper products and cardboard and deliveries to the houses have really caused a demand on the recycling side to keep up with the demand on the consumer side.
So there is still a huge market for recyclables.
Paper more than most. Aluminum tin cans will always be there as well.
Okay.
Plastics is somewhat it's not a bad, I don't want to call it a bad recyclable material, but it's the bad apple in the bunch.
Gotcha. All right. Mr. Burke?
You actually asked the question I was going to ask.
Oh, okay. Mr. Townsend?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was a similar question I was going to ask, but I was going to ask a follow-on to that. Since you have the microphone and the attention of us and the citizens that are watching, what would be your public service announcement to the community to make trash pickup and recycling more better? For instance, contaminated recycling, putting inappropriate things in the recycling bin, or not having the bins out on time, so then when they do come by, they're able to be picked up. So what have been the pain points that you're probably reoccurring that you would like to get out to our residents to help make the trash service that much better for the community?
You know, recycling, I always like to say, start at the front end of the consumer process. If you're at the store and you're looking at buying plastic bottles or aluminum cans in a drink product, go for the aluminum cans. If you want to do the environmental, you know, recycling side, it's a better product to recycle, and it will continue to live a longer lifespan. As far as with the trash collection itself, since we started, trash collection has went more automated direction with the labor force, and we just asked separation. You know, the easier you are on the drivers, the faster, and, you know, the quicker we can get off the streets when your kids get home and start playing and run around in the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You bet. Anyone else? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I would also add, for those of you who were there or who had the opportunity to watch the House hearing down in Jefferson City, Mr. Constable did an outstanding job of testifying in opposition to the landfill and in favor of 909 down there. At the time, a couple of the committee members were on the fence relative to where they wanted to fall relative to 909 and had some pretty severe lines of questioning directed at Mr. Constable. And he did an outstanding job of answering those questions on behalf of the industry and in favor of this city, representing us as an outstanding partner down there. So we thank him for that.
Yep. Absolutely.
And I will add one other thing, Mayor. Sorry, not to belabor the point here, but Councilmember Townsend, you asked one other thing that residents could do to help them out, and he was gracious to not bring this up. But residents, especially parking in cul-de-sacs, parking along the street right next to driveways, which makes it really hard for the large trash truck to get near the actual cans. So if residents could park in their driveways or avoid being right next to each other to where it makes it really difficult for the truck to get in would also be helpful for them in terms of running the route. So,
Thank you for that
Good
point.
point, thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Staff or Mr. Constable? If there are none, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Abdelgawad,
I move that we approve Bill 3818, budget amendment for trash, recycling, and yard waste fees.
thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3818. Any further discussion? Mr. Abdelgawad.
Just a quick comment. I just want to thank you guys. Every time we're talking about trash, you're always here. You always bring a positive attitude. You're willing to answer our questions and that sort of thing. So thank you guys for what you're doing for the city and for being here to answer our crazy questions.
Anyone else? If not, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3798 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3798 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, establishing an intergovernmental agreement with the Raymore Peculiar School District to provide school resource officer services for schools in Raymore and as requested at East Middle School.
Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. I'd call on Chief Wilson.
Since the inception of the program in 2016, the outstanding relationship between the district and the city has been further strengthened as a direct result of the efforts of the assigned officer. As such, the school district has proposed a continuation of the contract between the City of Raymore and the Raymore Peculiar School District. You all have the document attached. The attached agreement mirrors the provisions of last year's contract, with the exception of an increased amount per day and a decrease in the number of total days. The benefits of this relationship have been significant and will continue with renewal of this contract.
Thank you. Any questions of the chief? If there are no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mrs. Belgawad.
I move that we approve Bill 3798, agreement with the Raymore Peculiar School District for SRO services.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3798. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. That concludes the formal part of our agenda this evening. We are moving on to public comments. If anybody from the public would like to address the council at this time, please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and try to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. See no one coming forward, so we'll move on to the mayor-council communication. And Mr. Burke, I'll start with you tonight, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Only thing I can send is some regrets that I didn't get a chance to go to the summer scene last weekend. I have been to Ireland, and I was kind of interested to go see some of the things, but I went and sat in the rain and watched Sporting win. So, but I wish I could have been there, honestly.
Well, thank you. Mr. Forster? Ms. Forster. Mr. Forster.
Thank you. I was going to say good job on the summer scene for the Parks Department and the Arts Department. It's always a good time, so that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing this evening.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do not have anything tonight.
All right, thank you. Mr. Ingert.
Just two real quick comments. I don't know if anybody's had the chance to go by Elite Fence out on 58 through there, but they did a phenomenal job in putting that building together and the property, and it looks so much better than what was there before. So congratulations and thank you, David. They did a good job with that. And then I'd like to express my real quick thanks to Councilman Baker for volunteering to take all of my email addresses for everybody I hand out a business card to, as his email address is on here instead of mine.
All right, excellent.
So I do appreciate that. Thank you very, very much. I'm not in any hurry to have those replaced or fixed, but we'll hold out as long as we can. Thank you.
That's funny. Ms. Abdelgawad.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's teamwork.
That is teamwork.
Nice job.
That is.
I just want to take a minute and share with the council a few remarks on the personal appearance tonight by Mr. Shanks. I just wanted to let you all know that Councilmember Ingert and I have been in contact with him, and I know we've been in conversation with the city about what the next steps might look like and what that process might look like. So just sharing that. I'm not sure that we really all need a work session on that topic, as it is pretty specific to that one neighborhood, that one street. We went through a similar process with Morning View,
right.
so Mr. Ingert actually has some experience, and the city has some experience with that. So just sharing, if you guys are willing, we've already kind of partnered on that, and we're willing to work with the city staff and that neighborhood to
Do you
move forward on
know
that.
why Mr. Shanks felt obligated to come make a proposal to the council?
So he shared with us that he had the concern, and in like the same breath in his email said, I'm going to come and share with the council. So he already really had scheduled his appointment or made the decision to come and share with the council at the same time that he reached out to us.
No, I appreciate you guys already working on this together. So I don't know, Mr. Fearborn, do you think things have progressed enough that the council members and the staff can, that represent Ward 4? Or?
I think that there would be a time, I think that the Ward 4 council members have it, and I was going to talk to you afterwards, sir, do have it significantly under control. Had a very good meeting with Councilmember Engert last week on the topic. I know that Councilmember Delgado has been in touch with him, kind of outlining some things. Would probably still have to come back if we can come to an agreement on, here's what we're going to have to do, because staff would have to be presenting to you all, they've hit the thresholds in the takeover of infrastructure, and we'd want to be outlining those to you in a work session type format if we get to that point.
Oh, okay, all right.
Further down the
All
road.
right. Yeah, excellent, okay.
That's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Barber?
Thank you, Your Honor. I didn't realize we had that option with our email, but I will yield my time to Mr. Holman.
Okay.
And I'll yield my time to you, sir.
Well, thank you. I want to thank Ms. Abdelgawad for filling in for me at the work session last Monday night while I was out of town. I appreciate that, and probably going to put the onus on you for the next council meeting. Actually, Vicki and I are going to be out of town, so next council, just give you 2 weeks' notice there instead of a few days. And then I also want to thank Melissa for the summer scene that they did over the weekend. Vicki and I visited it, and the bagpipes and Irish dancers and everything was really fun. The artistry of the kids for the art project that they did was pretty awesome as well. But it was a good turnout till the rain came, and hopefully folks returned when the rain stopped. I don't know. We left when the rain came too. Did they return? Some of them did, yeah. Oh well, but it was well attended before the rain came. That's for sure. Anyway, thank you for that. And that's all I have this evening. I know we have a executive session to go into, so I would entertain a motion of such.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Abdelgawad.
I move that we move into executive session to discuss litigation as authorized by RSMO 610.121, Parent 1.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to move into executive session. Could I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Abdelgawad?
Yes.
Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Barber?
Yes.
Councilmember Burke?
Yes.
Councilmember Ingert?
Yes.
Councilmember Forster?
Yes.
Councilmember Holman?
Yes.
Councilmember Townsend?
Yes.
Thank you. We will now move into executive session. Upon adjournment from that, we'll come out for adjournment of the general session. Thank you.